Hi everyone, this video is for Monday, December 21st. You had to practice using Pear Deck questions, and we got those questions from our instruction book from guided practice days and independent practice days. So I'm going to be showing you the answers to those Pear Deck questions, but before I do, I wanted to let you know that you do have an anchor chart in Google Classroom. In your classwork tab under the resource and sections, that's actually an anchor chart section. So I wanted to make you aware that this is for your reference, preparing and studying for your quiz for tomorrow. And what I do like about this is it has two examples, one of each with some explanations and some tips. So I just want to run through the tips because today you have to decide whether you're multiplying or dividing to solve, and it's not just one or the other and given to you. So you have to figure that out. So we want to make sure we're thinking about both of these processes and remembering to not line up decimal points when you're multiplying and to add up the factors' decimal places and scoop from the right to the left to find that correct decimal placement. With division, remember to always make your divisor into a whole number by multiplying by a power of 10 or 100 or 1,000, depending on the numbers. Whatever you multiply to the divisor, do the same to the dividend. And you need to remember to rewrite your new problem after you've moved the decimal point. And remember to drag it up into the quotient first. So I am going to move on to the, quick answers, and then I'm going to do some more explanation if you need it. So I'm going to do the answer key, so to speak, first, and then if you are good to go, you have checked your answers and you've turned it in or done it on Pear Deck, that is set for class. And if you need some more explanation, I'm going to give you that right after. So number 24, you can see right away, the answer when you multiply was 273 and 9,375 10,000ths. All right, so moving on, we have 6,520 for this division problem for number 24. We had choice B, as in Bobby, or 75 thousandths inch, and Evan was wrong because he divided instead of multiplied. For the independent practice pages, we have choice C, 7/10 hours, choice B, 3 and 375 thousandths miles, and B, $7.50 for the answers for those questions. And for the last two, we have A as the right answer for number 4, and number 5, you should have had an explanation like she moved the decimal place 4 places instead of 3. She went too many places when she was placing that decimal point. And when you do the actual problem, you get 428 and 206 thousandths. So that's the answers. If you are good, you can stop watching the video. Just remember you have a quiz in iReady tomorrow. That's the only thing in the plan for you to focus on and get done before the break. And I hope you have a lovely one. You can stop the video now. If you want to scroll through and find a problem that I'm going to explain a little bit more in detail, feel free to keep watching. So for number 24, I have some highlightation going on here to help us figure out why are we multiplying. We're multiplying in this case because it's asking at the end how many hours total you have practiced after a given amount of time, 365 and a quarter days, and each day you're doing 3/4 of an hour. So that idea of each day you're doing a little bit of practice, how many hours after all of that time goes by will you have practiced? That is a multiplication question. Remember to hold that place value under the 5 right here. Sometimes mistakes happen when you don't line up this second row appropriately. And you can see that my black and my purple has outlined that thought process of how to get these numbers, taking that 5, multiplying it by 5, and then 2, 5, 6, 3, and then doing the same thing with that 7, multiplying it by 5, but that answer of 35 goes right underneath that 7. That's important. And when you're multiplying the two places, I didn't actually write that in, so I can do that in yellow right now. 2, 1, 2, and then 2 more, 1, 2, means that we're multiplying, and after multiplying, we're moving that place 4 places, so we want 4 digits to the right of that decimal point. Moving on to number 25, how do we know it's division? It's asking us per year. How many miles did they drive? So you have the total mileage over the 8.25 years they've owned the car. So that is asking us per year, divide up the miles per year being owned to figure out, on average, how many miles did they drive. So we are taking this large number, dividing it by a decimal. So we do need to move the decimal point 2 places to make that 825. And so we have to know that there is a decimal point, even though there isn't one in the problem. It's silently sitting right next to that 0. I drew it in and then moved 2 places, and I have to annex or add those zeros in. So you'll notice 3 zeros after that 9. That decimal point is right after that last 0. That's important too, being dragged up into the problem's quotient first, because when I'm all said and done with this division, which I had to do some multiplication on the side for, you see that 825 times 2 is that 1,650, and I get a 0 down here, but I'm not done. I chose to do that 0 at the end in green to make sure you're understanding that you have to hold that place value of the ones place. It can't just be 652. That would not give us the correct answer. So make sure you are dragging up that decimal point to help you with that when that occurs in that situation. Number 26 is a multiplication problem because it's asking how much rain fell in an amount of time. So they give us 3 seconds or 5/100ths of a minute. Because up here it says 1 minute, I'm going to use this decimal, not the 3. That was a tricky part of this one. You might have been wondering, do I multiply the 1.5 times the 3? I'm going to use the 5/100ths because it in the beginning says that 1.5 inches of rain fell in 1 minute. So I'm going to keep my units the same. So my setup is here. Notice the 5 is all the way over to the right underneath the 5 in 1.5. And I did discard, I didn't write this 0 placeholder in the ones place. It's a bunch of zeros, and you'll notice I don't even have a second row here when I multiplied because it's going to be 0, and I don't need to waste my time writing zeros. So I just had to do 5 times 5 and 5 times 1 to get 75 with that 0 placeholder is important because of this place value place. So sometimes you have to annex a 0 because just moving it 2 places would be 75/100ths, but I need to move it 3 places. So I do need to annex this 0 to make it a number that has 3 decimal points to the right. And so that's why it's choice B. Evan chose D because he divided instead of multiplied. So hopefully that was something that you were able to discover. Number 1 was a little tricky because of the numbers. The numbers of miles that he's walking is actually smaller than the miles per hour that that his speed is. So it's might have been confusing because you normally have the larger number 7 being divided by 4. But what's really going on is we're taking the distance and dividing it by the speed to find out how long it's going to take him to walk that distance. So the distance is 4 and 97/100ths. That is being divided by 7 and 10/100ths. So you might have set this up backwards. So hopefully you're realizing that the dividend, what we're splitting up, is that distance. Then, once you have the setup right, you have to make sure you're moving the decimal point appropriately. I'm moving it 2 places to the right, and so I'm making this 497 divided by 710, which is going to give me a decimal answer. If I'm noticing my choices, that helped me know what I could try to multiply by. 710 times 7 is that 4,970. The very important thing that makes C and D different is knowing where the decimal point is in the dividend and dragging it up into the quotient and making sure that that is all lined up. So it is 7/10, not 7/100. 4,970 is bigger than 710, but 497 is not. So that's why it's not 7. 7 does not belong here because 497 is less than 710. So you have to annex that 0 in order to get a number that's larger than 710. So this one was tricky for a lot of reasons. Number 2 was multiplication because they are asking us how many total miles she will walk in an amount of time. So we have the round trip to school every day that she has to walk, and then she's doing this for 4.5 days, and so that is a multiplication situation. You will see my little bow tie. This is a 2x2 multiplication problem, and I ignored this 0 again. Did you notice that? So I just have 0.75 and 4.5 when I'm setting this up so that I can count my decimal places. I don't need this 0. It's extra work. If, for instance, there was a 0 after the number, that is extremely important because then that would change the number of decimal places. But if it's just hanging out in the ones place, it doesn't change the number at all to get rid of that 0. And I don't need to consider that 0 when I'm counting my decimal places. Again, if it was like a 4.50, you want to include that if you are lining this up differently. So just a little tidbit. When you're multiplying, make sure you're keeping this open, and when you multiply 4 times 5, you put the 0 of 20 right underneath the 4. That could have been another mistake that was made, and that 3 decimal spots is starting at the 5 and moving over. If you had made this a 0 and slid this all over, you would have had to move it 4 places, and that would have been a 0 in that place. So it wouldn't have changed the answer. You would just have to move an extra spot if you added that 0 there, just to kind of circle back. Number 3 was division because it's asking us to discover how much she made per hour. So we are taking the amount that she was paid and the time that she was babysitting and dividing the money by the number of hours to find out per hour. So we're taking that $26.25 and changing it to $262.50, and we're changing 3 5/10 and making it 35 by multiplying by 10. We're just moving it over once, as you can see from my arrow, and I do have to rewrite this. Make sure you're rewriting things. I am using my choices again to help me with my multiplication on the side. Notice my decimal point is dragged directly above in the quotient so that I'm not getting 75 cents. That is not going to make sense as my answer either. So make sure that you're really thinking about, does that make sense at the end if you're getting an answer like A? So you'll see my 7 is being subtracted and I bring down the 5. And it does work out to a 0 at this point, but because it's money, I went ahead and annexed another 0. I didn't bother subtracting down here, but I did have to make it match my choice B. So that is number 3. We got 2 more. Number 4 is actually kind of fun. You actually don't need to multiply this all out. You could just simply count your decimal places. This problem originally has 3 decimal places total if I'm adding them up between the 2 factors. 1 for this factor and 2 for this factor makes a total of 3. So I have to find my match when I'm counting my decimal places. So you can see in green, I have 1, 2, 3 total, and 5, 4, and 2 for my other choices. So I know without even multiplying that choice A has to be equivalent just simply by counting the decimal places. But of course, if you wanted to multiply and actually find the match, by all means, you can do that. And so you should be looking for a choice that equals 70 and 441 thousandths, because that's what this is equivalent to. So when it says equivalent to, that just means solve. So number 5, the last one. Also, I found the incorrect mistake made by counting the decimal places. So you'll notice I'm counting the places in the factors 1, 2, and then adding one more to get 3. And there are 4 spaces to the right of the decimal here. So I know that she moved the decimal point too many places to the left, and it should have been 3 instead of 4. And down here, I'm just straight multiplying. You can see the red layer from multiplying the 1, the green layer from multiplying the 5 for all of those digits, and the purple for the 2. Notice my zeros or X's. You can do either one for making sure that everything is lined up when you're doing your 3 rows. And I'm adding it all up, as you can see, and I've added up the places already, knowing that it has to be 3 to the right of the decimal point. So I'm starting at the right of the number, moving 3 places, and putting my decimal point so that it's 428 and 206 thousandths. So hopefully that helped clarify any of your practice that you did if you're learning at home and you don't have a substitute to help you out. And I hope that you can feel prepared for your quiz in iReady tomorrow. Make sure you just try your best, and I will see you in the new year. Bye, everyone.